Professor Heneghan, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Great. Okay. If you could maybe give us an opening statement limited to 5 minutes, and I'm very sorry for the inconvenience, and thank you very much for bearing with us.
No problem. So look, I think we're here today because I've heard the opening arguments that there are sort of two schools of thought between endemic disease versus this strategy of elimination. And I think it's incredibly important that the first thing you do is be very clear about what does that actually mean. It is sentences like suitable period of time are unhelpful given the uncertainties. So you need to be very clear about that definition. If you think about endemic, then it's a disease or condition that's regularly found among people in a certain area. And what we know is around the world, this pathogen is now endemic. It's in every part of the world, and I'll come back to New Zealand, but it's out there. The idea that we're going to eliminate it globally is a misnomer now, and is a problem if you're pursuing that path. But when you refer to an elimination of a disease, then that's a deliberate effort that leads to reduction to zero of the incidence of an infection caused by SARS in a defined geographic area. So I think it's also important, are you talking about Ireland or are you talking about Southern Ireland? Because you can class elimination from a specific region without being eradicated globally. And there are examples of that, like polio and measles. But it's important to understand where we've had complete global elimination of diseases, there are only two pathogens that can come under that list. We've got smallpox and rinderpest. And they have three things in their favour when you go for elimination. They have an effective vaccine in place. They have no animal host. Humans are the only vectors. And then third, they have a political will globally to succeed in elimination. So when I hear that school of thought around elimination, I think, how are you informing this on what we've done previously? How are you considering this is a zoonotic pathogen that communicates to animals and back and has multiple routes of transmission? What you've alluded to is lots of people use New Zealand as an example. And I think there are some helpful examples between Ireland. You have a very similar population, about 4.9 million. But in terms of density, we're talking about 15 per square kilometre in New Zealand, whether it's about fourfold increase in Ireland. So you're a much more densely populated island immediately than New Zealand. In addition, when you talk about New Zealand, you have to consider its nearest neighbour is 1,000 kilometres away, over 1,000 kilometres away, and that's Australia, which is also one of the least densely populated countries in the world. So I think any comparison with New Zealand is unhelpful, because not only are they locking down, they have to lock out. You can't have a sort of all or nothing strategy. You have to have a strategy where them cities or countries have done this, like Hong Kong or New Zealand. We're talking about quarantine in hotels, 2 weeks, testing. Once you let people out, then the problems emerge. So I think that's important. I also think within your evidence gathering, there are lots of uncertainties about what's going to happen next. But things like if you look at the age structure of Ireland, for instance, the age structure is your median age is about 36.5 compared to 40.5 in the UK. We modelled that and looked at the deaths. That means you'd get about 10,000 deaths less for us just because of that age structure. So when people do comparisons, you have to really bring in nuanced evidence to understand that. The other thing, while we're on this elimination strategy, and I read the emails, there's lots of emotion about these issues. What we try and do is focus on the evidence. And one of the key problems, whatever your strategy has been, whether you're in the Sweden camp or whether you're in the Spain camp where they locked down very hard versus we kept society going, they have the same problem that we've got and you've got. You have 62% of your deaths in Ireland that are associated with care homes. It's still not clear to me why governments and policy haven't understood that's where the problem is, because if you look at the age structure of who's impacted by this disease, it is, well, I've never seen a disease like it where age has such a huge impact. Remember, in influenza, we see lots of deaths in under 5s. We are not getting that problem. Under 50, in England, we're talking less than 400 people have died of COVID with no comorbidities. That's an incredibly small number. So you can assume that the biggest problem in the middle age group is comorbidities, dealing with that. That's the most important. And the decision today is, if you're going to go down this elimination strategy, is to make it exactly clear what it is you're doing, what evidence you're basing that on, and in doing that, what you're potentially ignoring, where the strategy may be more important, because I still don't see the urgency around protecting care homes and thinking through that issue. Thank you.